We received an English Regency rosewood center table in for repair, and I noticed that part of the column had been repaired previously with contact cement and a different veneer. And so we're going to re-veneer this. You can see the contact cement leaves ripples and cracks in the veneer because it doesn't allow for proper adhesion. And so I'm going to take this off with the tool, and underneath you can see the bad adhesion caused by the contact cement residue, which will need to be cleaned off with a solvent. So once this is clean, I'll then be able to re-veneer it with a proper rosewood veneer to match the surface of this table. Okay, the next step in veneering a column is to prepare the veneer. So we have a piece of wood that we've stretched paper over, and in French this is a cal tendu. It's an assembly board if you follow the blog. And we have a piece of veneer that we've put together, big enough to go around the column. And you see there's a seam, and we want to protect this veneer from breaking, so we're going to glue it onto the assembly board with hot glue. So I have my glue pot ready, and I have hot protein glue. So I'm just going to put this on here first, and use a lot of glue. That I will glue the paper to the face side of the veneer, and this will help to hold the veneer together when I wrap it around the column. So I've got plenty of glue on here, so I'll just put the veneer down in the glue. And then clamp it with some plastic and let that sit for about half an hour. Okay, the veneering of a column, the system that I use is to mount the piece in a fixture between two dogs on my bench. And I cover up the bench with paper so that no mess gets on the bench, or it's easier to clean up. So I have this kind of under friction so that I can barely move it as I will wrap it with the veneer and with the glue. And so first thing I've done is I've taken a toothing plane iron and I've scraped the surface. I've already done this, and this will create teeth marks that allow for a grip for the glue. Once that's done, then I have the veneer already prepared on the paper, and I'm going to cut that off of the cal tendu, or the assembly board, so that I have this surface ready to use. And so this paper will just come right off the board. There's my veneer held by paper. And for that size, I've taken a paper template and I've wrapped it around the column first, so that I know exactly how big I need to make my piece of veneer. It's bigger than my pattern, so that's the size of veneer that I am using. So I have the liquid glue all prepared and warm from hot water, and what I'll do is I'll just put glue on the veneer and brush that out so it's all over the veneer surface. I like to do this ahead of time first. I like to do it on the veneer first because I want the moisture to soak into the veneer and soften it up so it won't break when I bend it. And so I put the veneer on the glue on the veneer first. Then I put the glue on the column that I'm going to veneer. And I like to use a lot of glue. It makes a mess, but it sure works great. So I'm applying the liquid hot glue, old brown glue, with a brush onto the column. I have plenty of working time because the glue stays liquid for minutes maybe 15 minutes or so. So I've got glue on everything. Now comes the fun part. This is where it takes a bit of handling, because what I want to do is wrap this veneer around here and turn this and get it all the way around. As tight as I can get it. And now I have this elastic band, which is a therapeutic band that you can get from your therapist if you have back problems. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start wrapping this around. This is again the ambidextrous part of it. Once it gets going, it works better. Now we're going. And I'm watching the end of each end of the column to make sure I have plenty of veneer on each end. Now, if you let go of this thing, it'll go backwards. So you don't want that to happen. Now, if you do this right, the glue will start coming out the end. You can see the end of this on my end where the glue's coming out. That's good. I'm going to keep wrapping. It's getting tighter and tighter. I'm surprised more people don't veneer columns. It's such a neat thing to do. And it adds a decorative element to your furniture that most contemporary furniture makers don't have. It also saves material because you're using a thin piece of veneer on a column. You can wrap any diameter column. I did a desk with 1-inch diameter columns that I veneered, and I've done tables with 1 foot diameter or more. So you can see I have to keep holding the piece or it will just unwind like a clock spring. The glue's coming out this end, and I have plenty of veneer. So when I get to the end of this, I'll just tape it and let it sit overnight, and we'll come back tomorrow and unwrap it, and I'll show you what to do next. So right here I can just hold it with tape. And to make sure it doesn't go anywhere, I'm going to tape the whole joint. It feels pretty good. So that's wrapping a column with rosewood veneer, and we'll let it sit overnight, and then we'll unwrap it tomorrow and cut the joint and finish it up. Okay, this is the next day, and it's important to do this about 24 hours later because now the veneer has shrunk to fit the column, and the glue is not completely set, and that's the important part of it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open this up and find the seam, make the seam for the joint. So this will come off. And we have a veneered column. Now, somewhere on here, there is an overlap. of the veneer, and underneath is the other part of the veneer, which I need to cut. So I have a piece of veneer I can see right here, and that other piece of veneer, it's hard to see in rosewood, but here's one, here's the other, there's one, and it goes this way, so there's the other right here. So this is one side and this is the other side. So what I want to do is I want to cut down the middle of those two, my joint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this straight edge on here and I'm going to clamp it down. So it doesn't move. I'm going to take a veneer saw and I'm going to cut through both layers of veneer just like you would with the normal veneer operation. Make sure I get all the way through. So that's the cut. Now, this part of the veneer I can take off because the glue is not completely set yet. So I can just basically take that part off with it. Kind of a scraping spatula tool. Being careful not to go through the second layer. And I can also heat that up a little bit to make it come off easier. I've got a hot iron here which will melt the glue, and I can add a little bit of water. This is the advantage of using a protein glue, is you can liquefy it and it comes off. So that's the part that was on top. Now underneath, I've got to get this part out from underneath. So I want to heat this up. This is where I have to be a little more careful to heat this up along the joint. If I didn't do this the next day, it would take a much longer time to heat up the glue because it starts to set by losing its moisture. But at this point, it still has a good moisture residue, so it'll be fairly easy to lift this up. So now I get under the seam and lift this up, and when I'm in there, I can begin to take out that scrap from underneath, just like you would on a regular joint of veneer. I have to be careful what I'm doing, look underneath and make sure I don't break anything. So here's the part I don't want underneath. That iron is set at a very low temperature. You don't want it hotter than you can touch with your fingers. You don't want to singe the protein. You just want to get it warm Doesn't take much to reliquify the glue when it's this wet. Now I can just see the last little bit coming out. And I want to be sure to get the paper out too, because I don't want to glue the paper back down. This is the paper that was on top of the veneer. Just a little bit more room here to make it workable. So I'm kind of unwrapping the veneer on one side because I want to make sure that underneath it's clean. There's no other veneer or paper that's between my surface veneer and the underneath the actual core. So I'm just making sure all this is out, because once I glue it down, it's glued down. Should be the last of it. So that's clean and in good shape. So I want to glue that back down now. This is part 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add more glue, because I just washed out all the glue and I want to put more glue in there. Plenty of glue. And what will happen here is that this will start to come down and form a joint, just like hammer veneering, right along that seam where we want it to be. And now we have to let that cure. There's the joint. I can feel that it's tight. And we're going to compress the veneer by pulling it down with this same process as yesterday, and that will allow it to press shut, and the joint should be nice and tight. So I'm going to put this on just like I did yesterday. And as I do it, I'm going to feel the joint and make sure that it's closing. And you can see some of the glue coming out. This is one of the big advantages of the glue, is the reversibility and the slipperiness of it. It really allows the veneer to move where you want it to move, and yet the paper keeps it from tearing on the surface. See, there's plenty of glue coming out. So we'll check that tomorrow when it cures, and if there's any more adjustments that need to be made anywhere in the column, then we can do the same thing. We can heat it up and repair it or move it around if we want to, and that's the advantage of doing it with this system. So That's day number 2 of veneering a column. Okay, let's open this up and see what it looks like. It's been 24 hours. Time to check our progress. So, what I'll do is I'll take off the paper now with some water and we'll be able to see what we have. So I have to soak this. I've got the paper off now, but I used water to wash off the paper, so there's a chance that the glue is not fully cured yet. So I want to take one more time to wrap it up with the elastic to make sure that it dries completely. So I'm going to do that now. There. One last time. I feel better today. I've had several cups of coffee, and so we'll see what we have. Unwrap this thing, because today it's done. Those of you that wonder what this elastic is, it's a therapeutic band, and I did an article for Fine Woodworking some time ago that talks about how you can buy this stuff. Or if you have back problems like I do, you can just ask your therapist. Anyway. This is the finished result, a veneered column in rosewood. And what I'll do now is I'll just take some of this green scrubby and I'll wipe off whatever residue of glue is left on the column, and it'll be finished. After that I can just sand it down. So this is the final stage of the job, is to wash off the glue from the surface. Again, that's the reason I use water-based protein glue, is it's easy to clean up and it won't stain the wood, and it's transparent to the finishes. Of course I'll just use shellac, but this way I can easily clean up the glue without sanding the surface too much. So this is the, if there's any spots that I missed, I can come back and reheat them and press them down just like any other veneer repair. So at this point, it starts to look like a veneered column. If there's any shiny surface left, it's because of the glue. There's some glue right there that has to come off. Otherwise, it's clean. I should thank Patrice, my partner, for the filming of this episode. Of course. He's the man behind the camera and the brains in the IT department. Basically, I just do the veneering and he films it. So if you enjoyed this, try it yourself. I think it'll work for anybody that wants to veneer a column, and the main thing that stops people is the fear of failure. And I've never had that fear. That's probably why I'm in this business. There's a veneered column. Well, that's coming to the end of our video. I know it took several days, but the idea behind veneering columns is fairly low-tech. In fact, in Fine Woodworking, in the issue December 04, 173, the one with Mario on the cover and me on the back cover, If you're interested, I have an article I wrote called A Low-Tech Method of Veneering Columns. And it explains exactly what we did on this video, including the references to the elastic strips of material and the reference for the rep bands and how to buy them. And if you can't find that magazine, you can always find the information on my blog, wpatrickedwards.blogspot.com. So to summarize, all you need to veneer a column is a piece of veneer, a liquid protein glue, some elastic material, and a column to veneer. And this is the final result, a rosewood column veneered on this rosewood table, ready to go back to the home and properly restored to its original condition. If you're interested in anything that we've done on this, let me know by email, and we'll be happy to answer your questions or produce another video specific to your needs. Thank you. Is it on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't overdo it though. Yeah.
What a mess.
Well, 140 degrees is kind of hot, isn't it?
Get some pressure on the end. Okay, turn.
Try not to let go.
Don't let go.
Ta-da!